Good morning. My name is Linda Smith. I don't have my name tag on today because I've decided I probably should change it to Samuel. I stand before you vulnerable and fearful. I stand before you with great excitement. And that's the tension that we live in this world as a congregation, as followers of what we are called to do by God. On September 25th, 2023, a group of 10 church members and 2 staff met for the first time to begin visioning on how to repurpose the AHC garden level. Now, Ellie Tenner just spoke to me before we started, and she said, "What is the garden level?" I bet there's a lot of you who don't know what the garden level is at AHCC. It's the area on the lowest level of our church. It's where the Thrift Shop sat. It's where many people have gone for the nursery. It's where daycare has been. It's where early childhood has taken place. Right now, and for the last several years, it has been unusable due to flood and water damage. It has been a privilege to serve as co-chair with Ted Carroll, who I have to say I'm not very happy with today because he's watching us from Iceland, to work with a diversely talented and fiercely dedicated group of church members. I want to thank them publicly in front of all of you, the people they worked to serve. They are Dean, and stand up, I've seen almost all of you here. Dean Amadon, Ted, you can stand up in Iceland, Helena Cavallo, Linda Campanella, Jeremy Claffin, Jim Grigsby, Afrika Hines, myself, Erica Thompson, and Andrea Williams. These people worked for hours, and I mean hours, doing research, interviews, visitations, and deliberation that made this report possible. There were months that we met twice, and there were months that we met 5 and 6 times. And everyone was committed to finding the best way to refurbish the lower level. Before we start the official presentation, I just want to tell you that my journey began when I walked through the bones of this building. And if you were here last Sunday and you heard Jordan speak about bones, this building has been made up of the stories and the fiber of hundreds of years of people. This building and this congregation is founded on good bones that are living. Can we have the first slide? I can't see what it is. That doesn't look like the first slide. Just a second. It's okay. I'm good.
That's where you are.
The tech crew is way ahead of me. We were charged by the senior minister, Reverend Thompson. It's still hard for me to refer to her that way. As most of you know, I'm her mother. We were charged to explore and develop recommendations for how best to repurpose roughly 10,000 square feet of the garden level, including the former thrift shop, all of which had sustained significant damage because of major flooding in 2021. Reverend Thompson asked us to be creative in planning for space that would be flexible, community-oriented, both financially and environmentally sustainable, and to have the possibility of being a model for other churches with or underutilized space. Is it something I said? We were also charged with bringing our final report to the Board of Deacons at their May 9th meeting, with anticipation of sharing it with you, the members of AHCC, today at our annual meeting. Next slide, I hope. The project scope included addressing the water infiltration through the foundation of this building, remediation of flood-damaged interior space, renovation, construction to establish our garden level as a true community resource center and welcoming neighborhood gathering space. Our work was filled with joy in our visioning and thorough investigations into the needs of the neighborhood. The task force was energized by the potential of the garden level, and I hope you will catch a bit of this energy as Linda Campanella leads us through the details of the report.
Thank you, Linda, and good morning, everybody. Okay, as Linda noted, a flood in the lower level was the precipitating event. It was not a flood of biblical proportion. However, as we began envisioning how we might repurpose the space, we did find biblical inspiration. We saw this as an opportunity to love our neighbors in new ways. We saw it as an opportunity to imagine what it means to be, as Asylum Hill Church always has been, a church in the heart of the city with a heart for the city. So in addition to making sure that our vision would be flexible and community-oriented, sustainable, and a model for other faith institutions, we wanted to be sure our reimagined space would connect to Asylum Hill Church's values as a faith community, connect to identified needs and opportunities in the neighborhood, and provide opportunities for members of our church to connect with each other and to connect with our neighbors in Asylum Hill. So in short, we began to imagine possibilities for our garden level as a logical extension and manifestation of our historic commitment to outreach ministry, and as an exciting opportunity to engage in that ministry in new, creative ways. Early in our work, we asked ourselves, what is God calling us to do next? And importantly, as Linda alluded, we also asked, what does the community need? And what are other organizations already doing and providing? To get answers to those questions and identify gaps that we might fill, task force members engaged in extensive outreach, dialogue, and assessment. I, for example, had conversations with Beth Bai, the Commissioner of the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood, Deirdre Tavera, the Chief Development Officer at Connecticut Public, which is doing some very innovative things to connect with the community in new ways. I talked with Sam Gray, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club on Asylum Hill, with Thea Montanez, the Chief Operating Officer of the City of Hartford at the time, and with staff of the Center for Leadership and Justice, which is the parent organization of GIA, which Erica referred to earlier. Other members of the task force also had numerous conversations, for example, with the West Middle School principal, with the executive director of 224 EcoSpace on Farmington Avenue, with ANA, the Asylum Hill Neighborhood Association, with the Chrysalis Center, with St. Francis Hospital staff, with the Urban League, with area arts organizations, and corporate funders. So all of the input that we gathered helped us to focus and refine our vision, the key elements of which you see on this slide. I will eventually get to this. By now you've read it perhaps. But these are the key principles or guiding principles that led us as we continue to refine our vision. Importantly, because there was so much identified need in the neighborhood and so many organizations engaged already, we determined early on that we were not going to create new programs, but rather find opportunities to engage people who are already doing things but want to do more in the neighborhood. We wanted to focus on historical Asylum Hill Church emphases and ministries and commitments. So, for example, the arts, education, wellness, whole body, soul, spirit. We wanted to integrate and include outdoor space as part of our vision. If you're familiar with the other side of the church, there is a playground that was at one time part of our early childhood center. We saw great potential to integrate the outdoor space with what we were hoping to do on the inside as we positioned ourselves to be a community resource center and gathering space. And importantly, we understood how important it would be to generate revenue. This is an incremental effort on our part if we pursue it. So we felt it important that in pursuing the vision, we identify ways to generate income that would make it possible for us to do this ministry in new and creative and sustainable ways. Next slide, please. So we identified 3 potential users of our space. First being rent-paying tenants that would use approximately 3,000 square feet of the 10,000 available, and they would make a long-term commitment to using that space and to paying for it. A second use was community-based service providers who might be interested in using shared office space to one day a week or 2 mornings a week provide services that we've identified as being needed in the community. So, for example, a job coach, a social worker, a financial advisor, an immigration lawyer. We've identified a number of types of such providers of services that are interested in connecting more directly and closely with neighbors around our church. And we think, based on what we learned from those we've interviewed, that there would be considerable interest in using shared space in a community resource center setting. And then the third group would be neighborhood and community groups that are looking for safe, comfortable, accessible gathering space. For example, nonprofit boards that want to have meeting spaces. One of the opportunities that was identified through our outreach was the need for space for LGBTQI plus youth to gather safely, comfortably, be in community. So there are a number of opportunities we identified for informal gathering space for neighborhood and community groups. Next slide, please. The key elements of the space plan for this 10,000 square feet. Overall, I should note that we twice walked through the space with 2 different architects just to get a sense that what we were beginning to picture would be doable structurally, and we were very encouraged from the beginning to be told, yes, there is no need for major structural change, the walls are good, the stairs, elevators, and so forth. So everything we were imagining was possible. But there are several things we need to do. The first, of course, is to remediate the water damage and make sure that there is no potential for future flooding. Second, we want to modify what we call the north wing, and that's the 3,000 square feet that were until recently occupied long-term by Connecticut's. That is the space that we've identified as being great potential for a long-term rent-paying tenant or 2, depending upon how much space is needed. And then the balance of the space we wanted to design flexibly to include medium-sized and large meeting spaces, small offices for the functions I identified earlier, and then multi-purpose space that would be potentially used for movement, yoga, dance. It could be rehearsal space for arts organizations. It could be used by Spectrum in Motion, which is and will remain in residence at Asylum Hill Church. So those were the 3 key space drivers. Next slide, please. We're going to show you one scheme And I caution that this is one of several schemes, and we're showing it just to sort of share our excitement and make it look real to you. But don't look too carefully because things are going to shift over the summer as we engage further with architects and refine our vision. It's not a final design yet, but please do get excited about what we're going to show you on the next slide. And to orient you, at the top is Huntington Street, to the left is Asylum, and down here is the parking lot. So you can see in the bottom left something that looks like stairs. Those would be the stairs that you would take to get down to the thrift shop. And the arch there is the access to the outdoor play space. So yellow is what we imagine as the long-term tenant rental space over in the right-hand corner there. Orange is outdoor gathering space, the current playground. I hope that's the right color coding. Red is formal meeting spaces. So in the lower left, you see some red, and multi-purpose space. So in the far corner, that's marked as multi-purpose space. We envision that as being the sort of dance, motion, yoga, rehearsal space, potentially. Blue is storage space, and green is restrooms, because we need those too. Next slide, sorry. Estimated costs. Of course, this does come with a price tag, and we have been very careful and methodical about estimating based on input from people who know more about these things than most of us do. And the total estimated cost is between $2 and $2.5 million, and that covers a number of things, including remediating the water damage, renovating the interior, architectural work, and engaging a fundraising consultant to work with us. It includes fixtures and furnishings, and it includes work still to be done on envisioning how the outdoor space could be reworked. It also includes a staff position, and we did look at multiple staffing models and concluded that for this vision to become a reality and to make this truly a community resource center that is truly and organically a manifestation of our outreach ministry, we need to have one full-time person dedicated to this mission. And I should note that this would not be the first time in our recent history where we have had a staff position dedicated singularly on outreach and connecting with the community. So that is also part of our financial calculus. On the next slide, you'll see the potential sources for funding, and it is a multi-pronged approach. There is flood insurance payout, and shout out to Helena for the great work she has done as our Chief Operating Officer in identifying funding. She filed insurance claims. We've gotten $25,000 in insurance payout. There is $78,000 from the City of Hartford that has been secured for flood and water remediation. There is off-budget funding available through a neighborhood fund, and the balance of that is approximately $125,000 at present. We have submitted a letter of intent to the National Fund for Sacred Spaces and hope that we will be accepted in July to submit a formal proposal for $500,000. Our needs and vision align perfectly with what this fund wants to do. If we do secure the $500,000, we would have committed ourselves to raising $1 million ourselves. So it's a match, and we feel greatly confident in our ability to raise that money based on what this congregation and staff have done very recently. We're going to be pursuing grants from local foundations and corporations. We've had preliminary conversations, and shout out to Andrea Williams, who's been very helpful in this regard, with the Hartford, with CVS Aetna, with Travelers, Bank of America, Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and Lilly Foundation. Again, what we're imagining doing is going to align very well with the philanthropic priorities of corporate and foundation givers. And we imagine also an individual giving campaign. There will be an opportunity for anybody for whom this vision resonates to invest in it, to help us make it a reality. In addition to identifying potential sources of funding, the task force did identify a wonderful source of inspiration. And so on my last slide, before I hand it back to Linda, I will share with you that the task force unanimously decided to recommend to the deacons that the Community Resource Center be named in memory of and in honor of our beloved former moderator, Earl Exum. This is an idea that Reverend Thompson has twice shared with Earl's wife, Tammy. We wanted, of course, to make sure that she was on board with this before we shared it with the wider community. And we have received her blessing. She's 110% behind it. And we are moved and grateful and excited to honor Earl in this way. So now let's hear from Linda, who will briefly outline next steps for the Earl Exum Community Resource Center at Asylum Hill Congregational Church.
At the May 9th meeting of the Board of Deacons, the Garden Level Task Force presented its final report as well as an attached timeline. The timeline was attached to serve as a framework and a guide for the next phases of this project. As in the plans that Linda showed you, this timeline is not written in stone. It is flexible and moving with our needs. 2024 will be the formation and organization structure to move from vision to reality, and that is already being worked upon. June through August, we will search for and hire a fundraising consultant to begin working on development, and we will search and hire and engage an architectural firm. In the fall, we will begin individual fundraising and submit our first grant applications. Identify and enter into contract with a tenant who will fit into the north space and will serve the committee. That the one very important piece of that, and you know that it's coming first, is that tenant will provide income to help move this project and vision along. In 2025, during the winter and spring, we'll work with the North Wing tenant to modify and occupy the space. We will develop a marketing plan for community spaces. That might be the offices that Linda spoke to. Who might occupy them and what services will they provide? Complete final design and preparation of construction drawings. In the summer of 2025, we will complete all or most of the $2 to $2.5 million campaign and put the project out to bid, review contractor proposals, and select a contractor. During the summer and fall of 2025, we will begin construction and complete the additional fundraising as needed. We will develop a job description for the staff. In the winter, we will hopefully hire a new full-time staff person so that that staff person is on board and helping us to implement the marketing plan of who will be present in the building. In the spring, complete construction and celebrate the grand opening. That's a hefty timeline. It gives us time to not only commit our resources, but time to refine our hopes and visions for what this church has to offer the community. And when I say that, I want to go back the other way. This project is not something we are doing for the community. This is something we want to do in partnership with the community because the community has so much to offer us. Now I'd like Afrika to follow with the deacon's report.
Friends, the Board of Deacons resoundly and unanimously approved the following recommendations brought forth by the Garden Level Task Force: to endorse the vision, name the garden level space as the Earl Exum Community Resource Center at AHCC, tap AHCC Neighborhood Fund to pay architectural and fundraising cost, seek and engage fundraising consultant this summer, and search for and hire an architect to create more detailed designs, colored renderings, and constructural drawings. And also, task the senior minister and chief operating officer to propose organizational structure to implement the vision, including the fundraising, construction, marketing, and hiring as needed. This is how we're going to bring this space into our reality. It is a space for the community in the city of Hartford, because we have a heart for Hartford. With the Board of Deacons' acceptance of the final report of the Garden Level Task Force and the Garden Level Task Force report to the annual meeting, you, the people who make up this community of believers, are entering into a season of possibility. Please join Linda and I for a moment of this vision. Close your eyes for a moment and be present, your hearts and minds open to the Spirit of God leading us. Imagine a full-time tenant providing needed services to the Asylum Hill neighborhood, as well as providing income to ensure that the Earl Exum Community Resource Center at AHCC can sustain its mission.
Catch a glimpse of the Board of Directors of the Hartford Symphony sharing meeting space with a startup community choir.
Let your mind rejoice in the possibility of job training and job counseling professionals working alongside mental health professionals to ensure that all of God's children have a chance to flourish.
Imagine on any given day a space that is safe and welcome for LGBTQ+ youth to meet, or a group of daycare providers having space to engage in conversation, problem solving, and continuing education. Picture yoga mats being rolled out after a community garden planning session. Hear the joy of an immigrant task force sharing opportunities for inclusion.
Picture a group of AHCC mid to later life members, such as myself, sharing a monthly dinner and bingo game with seniors in the neighborhood, both fulfilling to a need that need to be connected. Think of Anna, the Asylum Hill Neighborhood Association, in residence, providing direction and inspiration to our neighborhood outreach.
Now let your mind take you outside into the actual garden level, the portal between the pews and the streets, the pathway from hearing the word within our beautiful sanctuary to sharing the word in the neighborhood. Can you imagine church members and staff eating lunch with our neighbors from local food trucks, or shopping together at a regularly scheduled farmers market? Listen to the music playing in your mind. It's coming from a Saturday night outdoor concert that may possibly replace the sounds of sirens in our streets.
Open your eyes and know that you have now been invited into a season of possibility, a time of renovation, and a time for renewal. Thank you.